here in Nashville, and it's easy to use. And I think this is really the most realistic effort I've seen thus far. And I think that a lot of businesses are going to find this very attractive. And when you start reducing CO2 and you start looking at what works to cut down on travel, this is clearly one of the options I think is going to play a big role. John, you've been a public-spirited guy, and your company has done a lot of good work in the Middle East and elsewhere. And without going into details of stuff that's not public yet, I went to John and his colleagues at Cisco with an idea on how this technology could be used in some of the deliberations that are so important to trying to get an agreement on reducing CO2, and they just responded like that. I was very impressed, really do appreciate it very much, and it's still in process, but during that I had the chance to see this new updated version. I'd seen earlier efforts in the past. This is just spectacular, John, and I think it's a tremendous advance, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to use it more myself, and just to be able to, instead of flying to Orlando or flying to San Jose or flying to London today, I just came a few blocks from my house here in Nashville, and I really feel like I'm in a meeting of the minds in four different locations, and I guess others are plugged in also. So the good news, Lawrence, just to summarize, is that we're beginning to see movement, but not nearly enough. And today, as the Earth turns, this 24-hour period, we human beings will put another 70 million tons of global warming pollution into the Earth's atmosphere as if it's an open sewer. And it's trapping more of the outgoing infrared radiation that's absorbed from the sun every day. And the planet has a fever, and the fever's going up. And if your baby has a fever, you go to the doctor. And if the doctor says it keeps going up, it's not going away, it's not a passing bug, you've got to do something. You don't say, well, doctor, I read a science fiction novel the other day, and I'm just not sure you're right. You may want a second opinion. Well, the world's gotten a second opinion, and a third opinion, and a fourth opinion, and each one of them has come unanimously from the greatest scientists in the world, and they're waiting for us to respond. And political leaders are too often paralyzed into inaction because they're scared that the powerful constituencies, including average folks who can't imagine what kinds of changes are going to be necessary to stop burning all this fossil fuel all the time, they're scared of the kickback on it. But if we make up our minds to act, there's no doubt that we can do this. We've got the renewable technologies that we need. We just need to get the political will to act. We need to change our light bulbs, but much more importantly, we need to change our laws. We need to take the steps in our own lives, and individual businesses need to do so. But we as citizens of our respective countries need to really be activists in urging an adequate and urgent response to this planetary emergency. And when we do, I do believe, just to give another pitch for what Cisco is doing here, I do believe that this technology is going to be one of those new options that people are going to enjoy using.
Turn to John Chambers and ask you, Mr. Gore has mentioned there the importance of this kind of technology. If you could broaden that out slightly, what role do you see technology business, technology industry in fighting climate change in the future?
Well, Lawrence, one of the things I think to keep in mind is over literally a century, there have been great leaders, and I consider the Vice President to be a great leader, both on the political side, the technology side, and now perhaps the most important area, the fight for our planet's future. And you can have a great leader who articulates views and brings us to focus on an item with statistics, not just emotional, but statistics that go with it, which are undeniable. But very often when that leader moves on to do something else, or people's attention ends up being on the other 20 priorities rather than number 24, we don't get the end results. What is different this time is there's several market transitions going on at the same time. And you've got to catch market transitions to really make a difference. Otherwise, it's like dealing with world hunger, the AIDS epidemic, job creation around the world for 3 billion people making less than $2 a day. And what is different this time is really the internet. The internet, with a whole bunch of technology tools like you're seeing today, lumped together in unified communications, which we announced our intent to play in at VoiceCon in 2006, suddenly can change the paradigm. It can address almost all these issues, ranging from education to healthcare, to the ability to both have economic growth and do it in an environmentally responsible way, and to dramatically reduce the emissions. And to back this up, if you watch the internet during the 90s and through 2004, it changed the standard of living around the world. It grew productivity in the U.S. from 1% to 2%, which none of the economists, including Laura Tyson, who worked for you, Mr. Vice President, and President Clinton, thought could grow to 3 to 4 or 5% in terms of productivity, and yet we did as a country. And we did it by using these new technologies, entering orders online, serving customers online, core versus context. Now what you're about to see is the second wave of the internet. That's going to be built around collaboration. Our kids this time invented it. It's going to come through social networking. It will be enabled collaborations, co-labor of activity, and it will be enabled by a bunch of network tools called Web 2.0 that include products like telepresence that suddenly will allow people to work together toward a common goal in ways they could not do before. And when you catch these transitions and approach it not as a box or as a product approach, but say, what is the vision of possible? We can dramatically reduce the emissions around the world and have sustainable economic growth of 3 to 5% in all the countries. That is a doable vision. But to do that is going to require a combination of creative ideas and people working together who traditionally have not. Government, business, NGOs, leading scientists, etc. And it's amazing when you put these people in the room and discuss it, with each of us bringing strong points of view, but a willingness to say, how do we collaborate to be able to make a difference? And that's what occurred, Mr. Vice President, 2 years ago at the Clinton Global Initiative. I was on the stage with Vice President Gore, and if it's all right, I'll call you Al going forward. And the panel was really fired up on the environment. I just given what I thought was a very good speech about what Cisco is doing, how we were reducing our emissions. We're going to reduce it by 25% as revenue, 11% per employee, how we were going to use telepresence, cut the budget by $150 million, reusable energy. We're number 9 in the world in reusable energy, number 1 in the UK. And the Vice President gave a very impassioned speech about what needed to be changed and some aggressive statements about how business was not moving fast enough. I leaned back and said, phew. Now my other CEO colleague's going to have to respond to that. And my other CEO colleague, when the moderator asked him, put his mic down on the floor, and clearly I was left hanging. And I looked at that time, and suddenly the light bulb went off, is that it isn't about criticizing other people's ideas. It's about this is an undeniable problem that none of us can solve by ourselves. And only by bringing people with different views and passion together can you solve this problem. And the neat thing about it is, as you solve it, you can get economic growth, Cisco can make profits, we can cut the emissions, and we know how to make dreams come true in Silicon Valley. But you cannot do it without government leaders. You cannot do it without a great leader like Al articulating and carrying the passion, and at times getting criticism because of the passion, which you have to do when you try to change things. And so I think we have a vision to change this. Not just an idea with concepts, but it is the collaborative ability to no longer have to be in the same room to solve the problems, but to bring the power of the world leaders together, the business leaders together, the citizens and subject matter expertise in a way that's never been done before. So what you're seeing today is history. It is about changing the world, and it is about doing it and growing the economy in an economically and in a socially and environmentally responsible way. I do not think I'm underestimating that. And for those in the room that know Cisco, when we make these bold statements, we almost always deliver on it. It is a market transition that is undeniable, with leadership that is committed, and together we are going to change it.
Thanks very much. Let me turn to so this is from Mike here in London, who wants to know how the information technology industry can do perhaps some of the things that your CEO has just been talking about.